Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week, we discuss a variety of topics, and my guests will be talking from either a mental, a physical, or a spiritual perspective, or to be honest, in general, it tends to be a combination of any of the three, and sometimes all of them. So today's guest, my guest is Christy Tersnick, and I'll allow her to actually introduce herself. So Christy, if you can share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here with you, Karen, and just really talk about all of these things. Like you said, a little bit woo-woo, a little bit, mindset and all that. We'll go deep today. So I have over 20 years of experience. I'm a high performance coach helping professional women get out of the corporate grind and create their own legacy. So I really teach women how to leverage the scientific and the spiritual principles that are responding to mindset, how to overcome the self-sabotage that keeps them held back, and to really harness their innate power and intentionally create a life that they love. And I always like to say, live every day like it's a day at the beach. So I have, a number one best-selling book called Mindset Magic that was endorsed by Michael Bernard Beckwith. So I've really been on, this journey for quite some time. Of course, I have the Bachelor of Science degree, which gets like the scientific, aspect of my mindset, and then a master's in metaphysics. Ordained minister. I'm a certified hypnotist, Ho'oponopono practitioner. So I have like all of the bases covered.
Wow. Yeah, you're covering all aspects. Wonderful, wonderful. So, how did you come about to start on this journey?
Yeah, it really, for me, it began like, as so many people, it was such a winding road to get here. But several key things had happened in my life. Like when I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with a heart condition that the doctors had told me it's going to be a lifelong condition. You're going to be on medication forever. And essentially you're going to have to minimize the life that you wanted. And so after tolerating, that kind of life, I became very frustrated, and very discontent in my life. And I had one of those pivotal aha moments, or just moments of clarity when I was actually in the shower. I had just shaved my legs, so I was reaching down. And then when I stood up, I started getting really dizzy. And I knew I was going to pass out like right there in the shower unless I sat down. And for me, that really felt like watching all of my entire dreams, like my whole life, like just going down the drain. And in that moment, like I had enough with, that life, and I claimed something more for myself. So like in my head, I screamed, I said, no, like I want something more for myself. And immediately like that sensation, like that dizziness went away. And so I understood in that moment, there's a significant mind-body connection, and started to heal, and do the inner work. And through that work, I discovered that the heart condition that I had was a way that I had manifested to actually create a deeper bond to my estranged father, who also had a heart condition. So once I discovered that I can fill that need in a healthier way rather than sabotaging myself, that heart condition went away. Like there's no evidence that I ever had that condition anymore. So that really got me on the path of really understanding how powerful we are. And then, fast forwarding many, many years, I had the birth of my daughter, which, when I was holding her in my arms, I'm like, all right, you're going to be at some point asking me all of the deeper questions of what is life all about, right? Like, why are we here? What's the meaning of it all? So I started to explore like the deeper understanding of the spirituality aspect, because, I knew like physically and scientifically, like how, the mindset and subconscious work to help create our environment. But I was missing that spiritual piece. And that birth of my daughter was followed soon after by like the death of my father. So like all of these events kind of went to together to combine and really create a powerful catalyst for me to explore the understandings of who I am and how we can each show up as being this powerful creator in our lives. And so, it's been my life's purpose, and really is to help women to find their voice, to, discover who it is that they want to be, like how they want to live, rather than, feeling like they should be doing the things that society tells us to be doing. It's like, who are you? Who do you want to be in this life, right? So we can have the impact that we're meant to be having, right? Like that's the most important thing.
100%. And I love the fact that, yes, you've done all the studies, you've done all the physical aspect of studying the science side of it, the mindset part of it, and then yes, that little bit of woo-woo. Isn't that interesting that it tends to come about, like you just said, the birth of your child? This is when we start to maybe question things. Maybe things haven't been questioned before, unless there's been some kind of life-altering event. So again, the death of your father, what a combination of things to happen to actually start you on this journey. Phenomenal. So how long have you been now helping women in this sort of in this way? Did you say 20 years?
Yeah, it's 21 plus years now. So I started like in this industry through hypnosis, and really like diving deep into the power of the subconscious mind, and how our beliefs are so critical for the end result that we're experiencing in life. And so with that, it's just kind of built upon each other of how we can best, be our best advocate, really.
Right. And do you think, like, for a lot of people, because, we see this, so many people struggling with this kind of thing, as in, so where do you think this all stems from? I was having a conversation today about maybe the conscious goal wasn't in alignment with the subconscious belief that they could achieve that goal. It seems to be the default setting seems to be, or whether that's due to our environment and our upbringing, or just our general society, and I'm sure very similar, the States, Canada, UK, Australia, very similar upbringings. So is this belief that we are less than we can be? Do you see that as where does this come from? Has it come from our upbringing in our daily lives? Why is it that so many women need to change these beliefs? Why isn't the default of having that belief in oneself?
Yeah, and that's a very deep question, actually, because it certainly does have aspect in like the mindset, but there's also physiology between, of what's happening with that. So a lot of like our upbringing, like we're raised by, people who are doing, of course, the best that they can, but they're also wounded themselves because they didn't have like all of the, the best support that they were needing. And so it goes back through the generations of, feeling less than and not feeling good enough, just, in the world, right? Like living in the world, especially as like women, women have tended to be, much more limited than some of the other, the men and more influential people in the world. But even if you think about like being a baby in the mother's womb, when we're developing, we are in direct connection with the mother's physiology. And so if she is fearful, like if she is thinking or just believing something, that is going to be infiltrating into our DNA, right? Like into our biology. And there's a new science called epigenetics, which is showing that it's the environment in which our DNA is placed, which is activating different characteristics of that particular DNA. So, it doesn't matter whether or not we have the most perfect DNA, right? To be healthy, to be, worthy and to be valued, to have all of those strong beliefs in ourselves, right? But if we are in that environment that is not allowing us to access that type of belief within ourselves, it is a very difficult stretch sometimes for people to see that different possibility for themselves. It requires a lot of that deep inner work of changing the originating subconscious beliefs and ideas that we have. Like that self-image is so strongly ingrained in who we are and what our potential is.
Yeah, I mean, we see that so much and in so many cases. And I just find it fascinating that it seems to be, we can't say that it's the default setting, but it just seems to be so common, or such a common thing that we need to overcome if we really want to have the success that we want in our lives. Because there are so many people out there, it seems to be, that whether conscious or unconscious, have somehow these feelings of I'm not worthy or I don't deserve this running throughout their life that needs to be addressed. Right?
Absolutely. And, certainly our upbringing and our culture have a significant influence on us. But at some point we're all adults, right? Like we need to start taking that personal responsibility and saying, that was my history. What is my future going to be? How do I want to start embracing, my unique skills and abilities? And how do I then create the best possible outcomes for me? What do I need to internally address and shine that light on so that I can heal and not only help myself to create that better future, but in healing myself, I'm also healing the people that are coming after me, right? All those people that I'm influencing, that see me stepping into a new life, right? It's a beautiful wave that's happening when we change ourselves.
Yeah. And I suppose it's when people are aware. So hopefully anybody out there that does think, I can't do this and I couldn't do that, I wouldn't be good enough. That is just a story that your subconscious is creating for yourself. So yeah, come and speak to Chrissy, because there is light at the end of the tunnel, and being aware of it, because as I said, a lot of women, I feel that, they're not aware of it. This is a completely unconscious thing. But like you say, it's not that it can just be boom, dealt with there and then. You said earlier about doing the inner work. There is work to be done. And when we're talking on the more slightly woo-woo or more the mindset issues, people think that it's, I've just got to think positive or do this. There's a little bit more to it, isn't there? There's a little bit more inner work to do.
Absolutely. Certainly like the positive thinking and the affirmations and like all of that, that has its place, but that alone is not enough to change who you are, right? You need to put into place like those actions that are going to be reinforcing everything that you're thinking, right? Like you can't just think happy thoughts and have, abundance or a magical life appear for you. You have to actually say yes to all of those opportunities that are then going to be presented to you, because like when we are thinking a thought, certainly our subconscious mind is going to be looking into our environment and seeking out all of those things that are meeting and matching that expectation of the idea that we have. But also we are energetically sending out that vibration and that frequency that is going to be drawing to us everything that is in alignment with that, so as the universe is like rearranging itself to bring those wonderful experiences to you, when they arrive, we have to actually acknowledge and be aware enough to see them for what they are and to, start to say yes and to act on them.
Right. And that's what you just said there is the typical, when people are sort of almost, what's the story about, is it Moses and, people are praying for water, and it's, well, have you dug the ditches to prepare for it? You can't just expect a miracle. God, or whatever you want to call it, spirit, universal, whatever name you put on it, can only work with and through you. So no one's going to do it for you. Right. So like you say, love that. You've got to be aware and be open, eyes open, and actually look for the opportunities that have actually been put in your way. Yeah. Fantastic advice, because I do think, there's been so much in the last, 20 years really sort of pushing the whole self-development, law of attraction thing. And I do feel that people misinterpret a lot of it. Like The Secret was such a great film. And I can actually remember So I am going back. Oh my goodness, probably when was that out? 20 years ago?
It was.
Not far off, about 18 years ago. I think my daughter had just been born, my youngest had just been born. And one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given by a coach, one of Bob Proctor's coaches, because he was in the film, and he said, there's so much depth to that film, watch it twice a day for a month. And at the time, I thought, you've got to be crazy.
Yeah.
And then I sort of looked at my life, thought, well, maybe I should listen to somebody that's, doing great and I'm just starting out. Yeah. And it was the best piece of advice, because so many people misinterpret. They just think, oh, you're just going to ask the universe and it will just arrive. Well, you're missing what actually we're saying. So what you're talking about there, there is work to do. There's internal work to do. So why do you think, why are so many people stuck in, in their unfulfilled lives? Why do you think that seems to be the case so much these days?
Yeah, what I have seen is that, just like what we were talking about before, people have disconnected really from who they are. They're living for all of the expectations. They have done all of the things that everyone else wanted them to do. And somewhere along the line, they really lost sight of who they were. They disconnected from their purpose, from their passions, and they no longer really recognize like what lights them up, what makes them happy and have all of that joy. And the more that people are able to, kind of bring themselves back to what it is that makes them feel happy, those are really the ways that people are going to be more fulfilled, is connecting with, why am I here? Like, what makes me special? Like, what do I love doing where, time just seems to stand still? And those are the things that when we do those, we feel so much more fulfilled and so much more energized, that we really need to be connecting with.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and I would say, would you agree that side of things, again, could very much relate to the way we're brought up in schools? We're told to stop daydreaming, stop looking out the window. I'm sure I was told that quite a lot. Yep. Stop looking out and daydreaming, focus on the work. And that job's not, I wanted to be a dancer, sort of. When I was younger, that's not practical, and you should be an accountant. An accountant? You've got to be kidding me. I mean, that was
from a dancer to an accountant. Yeah,
that was never going to work, was it? That was never going to work. But it does seem like, and we, again, without maybe knowing that we're doing it, I might have said similar things to my own children at one time, in their best interest, as I thought at the time, thinking, no, you've got to do something that's, going to pay the mortgage, and because you want the best for them. Yeah. Because that connection with what resonates with you hasn't been put as a priority in the world as we know it, really, and we're sort of almost avoid. We're told to, that's a daydream. Don't follow that. You need to do something proper. So, do you think people's dreams do get squashed as they're growing up because of the school systems, or the college, or the high school, whatever?
Yeah, our society in general tends to be more analytical, very practical, very, head focused, right? Like very mind, brain oriented. And in doing so, we have, disconnected from that heart piece, but we're not just our head, we're also that heart. And we have lost so much of that connection to that heart, to really what makes us feel love. Because when we're in our space where we're doing the thing that makes us feel so good, if it's dancing, if it's creating, if it is running numbers, like whatever it is for people, like when we're in that space, we are going to be we're going to be living at a higher level, right? Like just the interactions that we have with people are going to be so much healthier. They're going to be so much more forward thinking, and just bringing the best out in each other, because we are being the best that we can be. So we have definitely been limited in many, many ways, which is again why it's our responsibility to have that awareness of, am I living my full life? Am I doing everything that I want to? Because so often that we have like that little voice in the back of our head that's says, I really want to do this. But then there's that other part that swoops in and says, oh, but you can't because that's not realistic. But the more that, the more that we listen to that part of us that's kind of guiding or whispering what we need to be doing, then the happier we're going to be, right?
100%. Well, what you just said there really resonated, is just listening to that little voice, is having that, because we have been, we've just been conditioned through the school system to not listen to that little voice, to come away from our natural intuition, because intuition isn't a tangible thing, right? It's not something you can see. It's not your head. It's an intangible. It's an activity, right? The intuition is a I don't know, mental muscle. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been sort of conditioned to no, do not trust that. And 100%. Your intuition for you is 100% on point, because it's looking out for you. Whereas my little voice, my intuition is 100% right for me. And I suppose it's getting people to understand it. Yeah, trust it. Mm-hmm. Trust it, because your intuition is actually, if you think back to previous things that have happened in our life, intuition is always right. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And even in the midst when other people are telling you, like, you're crazy, why are you, doing that? The more that you can allow that inner self to guide you, right? Just that, like you said, that intuition, the more accurate you're going to allow yourself to be, right? Like if you follow that inner guidance, you're not going to be led astray. Because it is going to be connected to that bigger, like the bigger puzzle than, that what we're able to see, right? Like we can only see like just that certain portion of it. And we're only, realistically, like seeing the physical part of our reality. We don't see what's going on energetically. We don't see like all of those underlying, details of what's actually happening.
Yeah, sure. Because it is just the way we're taught. I mean, we're not even necessarily we're not talking about religion here, people. We're talking about just spirit being connected to, again, whatever you want to call it. We're all calling it. It's just got different names, right? But it's actually all the same thing. It's a part of us, and it's also out there, right? In the it's the universal laws that are connected to us, and it's just having trust in that, isn't it? It's having, and I suppose that's what faith is, isn't it? Having believing in something that you can't see.
Absolutely.
And we are just brought up to rely on our 5 physical senses, and I think people can understand that there are a lot more, again, I'm not talking religion here, peeps. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking on a spiritual level. That there are things out there, out of our eyesight. I mean, even down to, I know, you look, a polar bear can smell. Their sense of smell is a lot more than us. That's something that we can't connect to, or a dog hearing at another frequency that we can't hear. So out of our physical senses are only giving us a small proportion of what actually is going on. And if we can just have faith in ourselves, because that's what our that little voice is, and it essentially, isn't it? It's still us. It's just still our non-physical part of us that has our best interest at heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well said.
So why would you say is it necessary to give ourselves permission to look within?
That's a beautiful question too, because like my personal view is that it is our each of us has a responsibility to be the best person that we can possibly be, that we can, do what we're here in this world to do, right? We all have a special ability. We have something that we can offer or give to the world. And by allowing yourself to really understand who it is that you are, you can tap more deeply into that truth of who you are, right? Of like what makes you fabulous, because we're each like amazing in our own way, right? And so the more that you can allow yourself to really believe that you have worth just by being who you are, right? Not who everyone else says that you are, or that you should be, but just by allowing yourself to be authentically and unapologetically right? Like who you're meant to be. Like that's the reason why you do the work, is so you can express yourself freely and really understand at that deep level of what is possible for you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And because do you think there's the issue can be, I mean, obviously there are so many good things, like we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's so many good parts of it, but due to social media, this sort of celeb obsessed society, sometimes people can then they can get caught up in comparing themselves to others.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody with a bigger boat or somebody with a, you know, so this comparison is not helpful to anybody, because we're all different. We're all wonderful, and we're all, you know, we're amazing in our own right. But do you see with clients that you see that quite often a problem can come from the comparison with others?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, because what we see on the outside is the projection that everyone wants everyone else to see, right? It's not their truth. It's really like that mask in general of what someone wants you to believe about themselves. And if you need to compare yourself to someone, the best person that you can compare yourself to is who you were, you know, last week or last year, right? Like, because we know our journey, we know what we have been through, we know all of all of the hardships that we have had, and like all of the efforts that we have made to strive, you know, to get to that next level. So if you're doing better than you were doing yesterday, like you are like ahead of the game. Right?
Absolutely. Why is it that we're so hard on us? I think some people, I think for others, especially when they have been through some kind of trauma or challenge, you know, quite big challenge, is again this comparison, and they maybe think that other people don't have a story. I mean, everybody's got a story, right? Everybody has challenges through life, and I think it's just everybody. They understood that it doesn't matter what has happened in the past. Your past does not equal your future, right? Anybody can create a change.
Exactly. And everything that has happened in your life has brought you to where you are today, which is exactly what you need to get to that next place tomorrow, right? So all of the hardships and the blessings that you have had, there's tremendous lessons and insight in there that you can use to learn more deeply about who you are, and you know what that next level of peeling back the layers for yourself is, right? You know, because I believe it's just all about learning more about who you are, so you can be the best that you are.
Sure. So how would you sort of explain to people how do they work together with the universe to create their lives?
Yeah. So the first thing, and I typically tell this to, you know, all my clients, is just to spend like a day or several hours just observing what's going on in your mindset. Like, what are you thinking most of the day? Like, what is your time filled with? And then from that point, you identify if it's something that's working for you, or if there are areas that you'd like to improve upon. Because what happens is, as we're looking, you know, as we're having all of those ideas, those thoughts, you know, we're sending out that signal to the universe and to ourselves also, you know, of what it is that we want to be experiencing, because the subconscious is not judging. It doesn't have that critical factor that will, you know, say this is right or this is wrong, this is good for you, this is not. It just receives the ideas and the information that we are telling it, you know, in the form of our thoughts and our beliefs, as what we want more of. So it will go to work and find all of those things that are validating that belief for us. And that too is working in tandem, you know, as we talked about, with all of the energetics of, you know, just connecting to that deepest level of everything that there is and bringing it all towards you. Because, you know, our world is really, you know, it's entangled, right? So when we have that idea, like we're rippling that wire or that web that's really bringing that other thing that we're calling forth, we're bringing it to us.
Right.
Yeah.
So really, you know, it's what's the saying? I think it's a Mike Dooley saying. Thoughts become things. Yeah. It is I mean, I can't remember what the number is. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Thousands and thousands of thoughts go through our head every single day. But it's yes, I suppose your advice there, fantastic, is just to be mindful of the more consistent thoughts, because yes, we're going to have zillions of thoughts come through our head, but if there's something that's consistent, because that will be almost like, I suppose, the holding pattern, isn't it? And quite often, I mean, this has always sort of fascinated me. I don't think I've ever really, just naturally, never really been a worrier. I'm very grateful for that. And I always used to think, well, you know, it's such a crazy thing to do, because it's not happened yet. It's the future. You know, how can you worry about something that hasn't even happened yet? And then the weird thing is, like you just said, if you're holding on to that kind of thought, it's almost going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You actually created it. But it's like but then that sort of makes sure, well, I was right about that. And then that will continue with the pattern throughout life. But if people can understand the flip side of that, and actually it's your thought that possibly created that. Yeah. Because there's so many people that are either reliving the past. I know I can have a bad habit of doing that at times. I'm aware, though, you know, awareness is step one, isn't it? At the end of the day, we're human. It's never going to stop, right? But at least if we don't stay there too long, it doesn't do the damage, right? But so many people can be stuck either in the past, which, well, if it was a good past, then it's great, because it can help the future, right? But in general, we tend to go over the more negative side of things, which again sounds crazy to me. It's that default pattern. It's like, why do we not focus on the more positive? It's almost like we're taught to be humble. Don't go on about the good things. And that we do sort of give more energy to the negative. That's always like fascinating. It's like, why is that the default? That we have to almost consciously, you know, make an effort to actually acknowledge the good stuff that's gone on and celebrate every win. And why do we not do that naturally? And we focus on the bad. Where are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that tends to be the pattern for most people?
Yeah, a lot of that comes from just our evolution. You know, when we were, you know, back hunters and gatherers, and we actually had to look for danger, right? So our brains have become hardwired to find the negative, find the thing that is not in alignment with our safety, right? And so our brains have really been conditioned to find everything that's wrong and to worry about those things.
Right. That's the first time I've heard that. That's very interesting. Obviously makes sense. But isn't it interesting that all these things, when you hear about things, it's from our very past. And you think, wow, why haven't we not dealt with that one already? Come on.
And my understanding too is that the technology in our society has evolved so much faster and at a much more rapid rate than what our biology has, you know, so our brains haven't caught up with what's going on in the world. And so we're still kind of stuck, you know, in the past of that evolution aspect.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense as well. So it is something, but then that just goes back to what you were talking about. We need to take responsibility now for our lives, because whatever's happened and whatever our upbringing and whatever conditioning we've had up till now, okay, done now. Now we're adults. Now we're aware. So now we can do that inner work. So we can, you know, celebrate the wins a little bit more, stop focusing on the negative, try and stay present, not in the past or worrying about the future. Just stay here. I mean, I know everybody talks about that every few years, really, I suppose, the importance of staying present. But I suppose the truth is the truth, right? It sounds so simple. Yeah. It sounds so simple. But why do people have such a challenge with that?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times it comes from the benefit, that they're getting from doing the worrying or the lesser behavior, because behind everything that we're doing, there is an underlying positive benefit that we're getting, and it's all one of those core human needs, love, connection, like making a difference and impact, like all of those things that are really important. And the behavior that we're doing is meeting one of those needs. So unless the benefit to change outweighs the effort that it takes to transition from that old behavior into something new, we're always going to default to what we know is a certainty, right? We know that this behavior, even though we might not like the outcome, we know that there's going to be some benefit. If it's rewarding us and affirming like some belief that we have about ourselves, or it's somehow like validating that underlying human
And I
need.
suppose that whole comfort, it's just that comfort is what we know, going back to what you know and what you've gone through. So that's just been the pattern. So it is going to be, even though it's not serving you, the thing is comforting in a way. It's just such a fascinating subject. But and what you just said there, I think is very important about at the end of the day, it's, if you want change, you've got to change. And what I see as well, even with my business, is, again, we live in this self, it's just everything's so quick. It's instant gratification. And actually, people might want the end result, but they want everything to stay the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't want to do the work. They actually don't want to do that. They don't actually want things to have to change. Like for me, if they had to change their diet or start exercise, or they just want to really carry on about their business as normal and their health or their weight to change. But in order for you to get that result, you've got to change what you're doing every day. And that's the rub.
Yes.
Not everybody's prepared. It's not necessarily what it's going to cost or how many hours it's going to take. It's got nothing to do with that. It's the actual change being the key. They've got to do something differently. And for some people, that's the toughest thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, because it challenges the self-image that we have, right? Like, because we're living in a life where we believe one thing about ourselves and our possibilities and where we fit into the world, right? Like, where are we in the pecking order of everything? And when we're asking ourselves to change, it's challenging us to grow that self-perception, but it's also triggering within us possible feelings of, fear of success, fear of failure, you're right? Because we want that next level, but then if we are successful, then what does that mean? Like, what am I going to lose out on? What's going to change? Like you were saying, right? What's going to change in order for me to be successful? Or what if I am successful and then I lose it all? Or what if I don't get to be successful and then I disappoint myself? Can I live with that feeling? Which for many people, it results in a cycle of like shame and just, all of that self-attack that many people go through. So it really requires a lot of like courage to do the inner work, to decide if this change, this new life that you want for yourself is something that you're actually willing to get dirty with, doing all of the things that are required for it.
Which is why they need a coach like you. I mean, I'm such a believer in coaches for everyone, every single one, every coach even, because, as you said, sometimes these things are not easy to do. Change in and of itself. We all know that, whatever the latest stats are on how long it takes to create a new habit, it changes all the time. But the fact is, it's got to be done consistently in order to change. And we all know that life gets in the way and, we can get distracted. So, willpower can only last so long. So when people try to do stuff on their own, this is why the success rate isn't too high.
Right.
Purely because it's not easy for any of us. Yeah. And the advantage of having a coach to take them through it like you is that you've got somebody there that's actually got your back and somebody to be accountable to, because sometimes we need that accountability. I always find it interesting with, people trying to find success in whatever they want to do. And the trouble is if they're used to being an employee all their lives, they're so used to basically being told what to do. You go to work and you know what's expected of you throughout the day, and to try and do stuff on their own when they don't have a coach to sort of, keep them on track.
Yeah.
It's difficult for anyone. And then, of course, they feel a failure, and then it's all this knock on. But the thing is, that's perfectly normal and human, that it's difficult to do it by yourself. Why do it by yourself when you can, cut years off the learning curve and just get a coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Just get a coach. We all know it works for anything, rather than trying to spend hours and focus on what you're doing. If you had, how do you work? Do you you obviously help people overcome all these things, but how is it that you work?
Yeah. So what you had just said, like, absolutely spot on with everything. And just to kind of add to that, like, if you would have been able to do it on your own, you would have already by now, right? Like, we're all smart people. And sometimes we feel like we're not good enough if we need that help, so, that's one of the things that people really need to understand, is that they're just as smart as everyone else. They just perhaps don't know the way, right? Like, they haven't been given the proper tools on how to change. And so, like, when I work with someone, I really help them to see where their blind spots are, to understand how they're getting in their own way, help them to get clear on what it is that they want for themselves. Because so often we say, like, I want more abundance, I want more happiness, but it's not really quantified. And when we don't have that specific idea of our outcome, it is very, very difficult for us to ever achieve it. So really getting crystal clear on what you want, that allows you to then create a specific action plan for achieving it. And a lot of what I do is really getting clear on that self-image and the boundaries that are necessary. Because for many women, we have very weak, if at all, boundaries for our time, right? Like, we always put ourselves at the bottom of the priority list, even though the things that we want are very important for us. So when I work with someone, it's really just helping them to claim more ownership of their life, remembering that they have worth and value because they are human, right? Because they're living and breathing. Their desires are so very important to bring to the world, and really helping them to align. And like we were talking about earlier, just connect with that heart space again, to see what lights them up, and then we bring the mind into it so they can have the inner work and the outer actions working in harmony.
Fantastic. And that really is, I suppose, the overall thing is about being heart-centered and just go. I mean, things just tend to flow. Yeah. Obviously, when you are in alignment with your purpose. And I think some people can get so sort of a little bit anxious about that, because they might not know what their purpose is. But it takes time alone, bit of quiet, bit of meditation, whatever, and a guide. So Christy, be your guide to actually finding what your true purpose is, or what you're passionate about. So how can really understanding our purpose, and I know that for some people that can be the issue, is they don't know, but how can understanding our purpose help us, once we've got it, help us to experience joy and success?
Yeah, when we are connected to that deeper purpose, there is more meaning for us to get up in the morning, right? Like, we wake up with more excitement because we know that day is going to be filled with such value of things. And when we are in that space of alignment, like, we are showing up in a different way than what we have allowed ourselves to previously, perhaps, because we are allowing the full expression of, our deepest spirit to really come through us and to be, shared with the community and and the world at large. So it's really just allowing us to, when we're tapped into our purpose, to be the best person that we can be, so we can make the impact that we are meant to make in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for anybody out there who realizes maybe that they're not on, I mean, have you found personally that these last, we're coming up 2 years now, right, with what's been going on in the world, that because of I'm not sure how it works over there, but in the UK, a lot of people had furlough, so they were off work in lockdown, and so they were still getting paid, maybe not full amount, but maybe that time off, because nobody had ever had that right before, up till that point, if they didn't work for themselves. So that time too, maybe, I think the issue is some of them, they don't want to go back to work.
Exactly.
They've realised that they have been living, I don't want to say lie, because that's too aggressive. It's too, all I mean is we've been taught to, you've got to do things this way, and you've got a mortgage to pay, so you've got to go and get a job to pay for it. So that has been at the forefront of most people's minds. I'm not putting that down in any way. I'm just saying that's the way most of us have been brought up. So to have that time alone at home, I think in a way, I think there's going to be a lot of good coming out of that, because I do think a lot of people have had time to reflect, self-reflect. I think people, because of the anxiety of the whole situation, maybe some hopefully have looked at mindfulness and meditation because they've needed to deal with the anxiety of the whole situation, which then maybe has helped them come to the realization that actually, what would I like to do? And then maybe, spent some of the money on retraining and pivoting. I suppose pivot is the new word for the last 2 years, isn't it? Have you seen a real change because of what's gone in the last couple of years?
Yeah, there's definitely that level of discontent and of settling. Like, people no longer are tolerant of settling for less than what they want. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens, 5-10 years from now, to see how the world is shifting when everyone is allowing themselves to, like you said, take that step back and really evaluate how they have been living their lives. Like, what are their priorities? What's important to them? Because this experience that we've all gone through has been really insightful for us. It has, like you said, it's given us that opportunity to do some of that inner work and identify where we're not so happy, where we want to change. And then for many people, hopefully, like, giving themselves actually that permission to make that change, even though it's scary, but they do need to really allow themselves to step into that new future that's going to make them feel more fulfilled. Because, when you have that feeling of unease or just unhappiness, like, right? Like, you tend to try to squash it down, and that's your signal, right? Like, that's your intuition or your higher self just really saying something's not right here. Let's take a deeper look at that. And so, when I, am seeing more of the clients and the women just coming forward saying something's got to give. Like, I don't know what the thing is, or I don't know what I want to be doing, but I know that I don't want to be doing or living the life that I was living. And so it's very, very courageous, for these people to be making these changes.
Yeah, sure. And as you just said there, about they're just pushing it down. And yeah, you're right. I really feel that because living I mean, I know everyone's different, but in these main countries that we're talking about, especially if you live in a city and you are in the rat race, people are so, or have been, especially if, say, like I'm just outside of London, really, I'm right on the borders, so people just commuting into London, just having to get up super early, get on a jam-packed train into the city to work all day. They're working long hours. They've never actually had time, like real time, to stop and actually hear that inner voice has probably been screaming, but they can't hear it because distract. It's just the whole life has just been non-stop do. So to have that, I think that's why so many people struggled at the beginning, because going from that to zero, nothing, I think a lot of, some people actually couldn't even handle that aspect, right?
Yeah.
So for once in their life, maybe they've been forced to slow down and start to listen. So although obviously it's been phenomenally negative, the whole thing experience, I still hope that there's actually a lot of good to come out of this, because people hopefully will be, okay, yeah, what's best for me? Do I want to go back to that getting up and getting on a jam pack? Who wants that? I mean, that's great. Or just for the money of it. I mean, it's just bang my head against a brick wall. I would not want to do that at all. I know. So hopefully things are sort of coming out the other end now, as hopefully we start to get things back to, I'm not going to say normal, we don't want it to go back to what it was, but get back to living and enjoying life. So if there are any of the listeners out there and they think, oh yes, maybe I need to speak to somebody about, you know, how I find my purpose, for starters. Obviously, depending on whether you're hearing this or watching the video, I'll have Christy's links and everything. But for everybody listening on the radio, what's your website, or how do people get hold of you?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is powerful-mind.com. And there are a bunch of free resources, like some, free meditations that people can, download just to help them really connect and trust in themselves and what it is that they want for themselves. So all of that is available on the website.
Fantastic. And then how do you work with people? Is it a sort of a long term, or is it a package, or do you work just by the hour? How would you work with people?
Yeah, so I take on a handful of, private one-on-one clients, typically for about 3 to 6 months or so. And I do also have a group program that is a 6-month program, with 2-year content. So it's definitely like a full holistic type of program and support for people to really help themselves to have that safe space to really understand who it is that they want and the tools to create that life that they want for themselves.
Fantastic. So do you have any, 3 top tips for anybody who is maybe starting to search or starting to even question, am I on the right path here, or what would be your advice to those?
Yeah, so it would definitely be tune into how you're feeling, right? Like our feelings are an indicator for what we're thinking. So if you are feeling in general happiness, if what you're doing, like the majority of your day, is giving you positive, happy feelings, you're on the right track. Keep doing more of that. If you are feeling, like you're constricted, if you're feeling that unsettledness, then it's time to allow yourself to really do some of that deeper work, which means really going to those shadow places where it's sometimes a little bit scary to venture, because we don't know what we're going to find, or we don't know the level of perhaps disappointment or unhappiness that we're going to find. And this is really where it's necessary or very helpful for you to seek out support, if it's, a family or friend that's close to you, or, seeking out a coach that is able to help you to walk through the process. But then really giving yourself permission to take that honest look of where you are, of where you want to go, and what's going to be necessary for you to accomplish all of those things as you're moving forward. Those are going to be some of the best things that you can really lean into as you're starting this journey, because it all starts with permission, right? It's just giving yourself permission to say, where am I? Am I happy? And if not, like, how can I create that someday? So it starts today, living our future best life in the moment.
Right. Fantastic advice. And it doesn't have to be done. It's not, we're not saying, go out tomorrow and tell your boss that you've had enough and walk away. No, we're not talking about that. It's about coming up with some ideas, researching, having a look at what you want to do. And then you can always do things. You can do things slowly. You can do things as a start your own thing, part-time. And then as it builds, then just think to yourself, how cool would it feel to actually maybe be able to finally walk away from the job that maybe isn't serving you at present. So yes, we can't go No, get rid of that while we're searching. Right. Some people might be in a position where they can, but for a lot of people, they're not going to. But it's just about finding, and it is, like you said earlier, it's all about the journey, isn't it? So none of this is going to happen overnight. And you're right, it can be quite scary for a lot of people, especially if they've been in the same job or within the same company for a very long time and have realised that that maybe then they're not on purpose. But yeah, everybody, I'm a true believer that everybody you can have whatever it is you want. Don't undersell yourself. Whatever you've got in mind, you have the ability to achieve. But my recommendation is always going to be get a coach, have somebody that is going to have your back, because otherwise it is quite a lonely process trying to work it all out on your own. And that is when your subconscious will kick in at some point, because we all get to that sort of, I call it that wall of fear. Because it's only sort of the passing, and if you break through it, it's fine. But in general, people come up to that, and that's when the doubt and the worry and the anxiety steps in, and then they step back to safety. And don't follow through. But if it is heart-centered and it is something that you truly want to do, it's having that bravery to burst through that wall of fear. But why not have somebody holding your hand as you go through it?
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, like you just touched on something, like that wall of fear. Like so many people think that when they get to a certain point that fear and that sabotage is going to go away. But what we need to realize is that with every new level, like I like to say, with each new level, there's a new devil, right? There's something that's always going to be coming up, and just really challenging you to get to that next level. So like you said, it's so important to have a coach or someone who can see that vision, or just to mirror to you where you're getting in your own way, because you don't know what you don't know. You can't see it. Otherwise you would have changed it. Right?
Absolutely. And it is that, it's again, I think so many people, I don't know, they see people's success and maybe don't see the journey that they've been through. Because, for nobody, I challenge, I make a challenge. I don't think there's anybody that's had it plain sailing from start to finish, like in a straight line. It doesn't, but we again, maybe conditioned, or we're just in the habit of looking at people's successes and not seeing the journey that they've had taken to actually get there. So we think it's going to be plain sailing, and it never is. It's never going to be. And as when we're aware of that, then we can have the tools to deal with it when it comes up. If we know that we're going to come up against this wall of fear, it's okay, because it's just part of the learning process, right? It's just, that's how our minds work, and it's almost like a subconscious catching up and wanting us to say, it's just so annoying. But then you're a hypnotherapist. Did you say you do hypnotherapy as well?
I do. I do.
Even that's brilliant, because, I always look at hypnotherapy. I'd love to do it, actually. Yeah. But I always see it as, I just think, again, I think you said this earlier, about it's a back road in. It's it's going straight to the subconscious.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of a cheat. So
makes it easy, makes it easier.
Exactly, makes it easy and quicker. Why struggle? Why do people struggle so much? You don't have to, because even then the hypnotherapy as well is just bypassing our silly subconscious habits and making changes that are gonna be long lasting. Yeah. So what a phenomenal combination that you do. I think that's amazing. And so any women out there who have had enough, come on, you want to live your best life, please get in touch. So Christy, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Lovely to meet you virtually. Yeah. And for the rest of my listeners, I will be back next week with a coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Bye.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.